Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Brian Speaks On. I am the Brian Speaks On creator and moderator of the YouTube channel and Facebook channel, Brian. And first, I want to apologize for it taking so long for me to make another speaking topic. Just life, and working on a project that I hope to soon be promoting on the page. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, maybe I have a little bit more info to put on there. But it's definitely going to be something worth checking out when it does go down. Man, this one, I hope I can get this out and not take too long, because y'all know I be kind of long-winded with these topics and stuff. But I think this is a very important topic. It's not the average Brian Speaks On where I use a specific incident to speak on a broader range topic. This is more, it's almost like the opposite. It's like I want to talk about a broad range topic and then kind of like go into a specific aspect of a broad topic that I think is a very key component that isn't spoken about. I really haven't seen much about it spoken about, except for little fragments here and there, but not on its own stage. And I think that this is one of the keys to, more specifically within black culture, one of the keys to breaking a lot of cycles and starting to rediscover our foundation as a culture. And it's something that when I mention it, I don't want people to start cringing and basically turning their computers off, because when I say the topic, it may invoke some discomfort, but it's essential, it's crucial, and it's time for us to stop being so self-conscious when it comes to speaking about certain stuff. I was doing a lot of contemplating, especially yesterday and into this morning. It's an early Sunday morning here. Happy Easter, by the way, for those who get down with that. But this has been something that's been kind of like scratching at my brain. I'm not a psychologist. I have no accreditations of any kind in any facet of psychology, psychoanalysis, or anything like that. But I am somebody who has a kind of like a passion for reading stuff that deals with psychoses, and I read things from people who are experts at stuff, and it got me to thinking, about us and our behaviors. And although this applies to any person, everybody, again, this is a black culture topic, so I'm going to focus on that. We as a culture need to have a better understanding of how to look at things when it comes to our behavior. I think that we don't take the proper approach to examining ourselves, to analyzing ourselves. We look at what we do as something that is strictly about free will and choosing to do what we do to each other, to ourselves, things that are self-destructive and self-sabotaging. I think we would do ourselves a much better credit and service to ourselves if we started looking at the situation, things that we do, from a more psychological point of view. Because everything has a psychological source. We almost never just choose to do something, consciously, but with no source of reasoning. And the more I thought about this subject, what got me thinking about this subject, let me start there, was I was with my daughter, and I was just doing our normal thing. My daughter and I have a very affectionate relationship. I shower her with affection. I'm a very doting father, and I'm not saying that to pump myself up. I'm saying this to get to a larger point. So my daughter sees me as I'm her first man. I'm the first symbol of a man in her life. I take that extremely serious, that responsibility, that symbolism. So I want her to understand that subconsciously. I want her to understand when she gets older and she gets out there and, you know, it's all about her now, that a man who loves you, a man who respects you, a man who sees you as a person, as a mate, as a soulmate, as a partner, will give you affection. And I'm not just talking like, you know, wanting to show how much he likes you by showing that he's sexually attracted to you. You know, that has nothing to do with it. That's something completely different. A man who wants to be with you, who loves you, will have no problem showing that affection towards you and will be intimate with you. You know, now, of course, when you use that word intimate as it relates to being a father, see, people start getting squeamish, you know. And of course, let's be mature here. You know, let's understand what we're talking about. It's all about showing our children what it is to be a man and to be able to show love to a person. How to be affectionate to our children, because again, we are our children's first go-to source of understanding how this is supposed to work. If you don't show your child affection, if you don't show how it is to show love, when they grow up, they're going to look for what it was that you showed them when they were young. Now, whether it is you show them love or you show them no love, that is what they will pursue. So if you're the type of person who is you know, stoic and not really the type to give your kid a hug or console your child when they fall, then they will grow up looking for somebody who is of the same mannerisms, and that won't be something that will give them emotional and spiritual completion, you know, because they're going to look for somebody that really doesn't show them any love, because symbolically that's what they were shown. So to them, that's their understanding of what it's supposed to be like. So when you see people in relationships that kind of make you scratch your own head, just understand, we are reenacting a learned behavior. You know, the lack of male intimacy and affection is basically reflected in our culture. You can see it. You see it in the way our boys are. You see it in the way our girls are. You see it in the sense that boys don't tend to have the appreciation of being able to show a woman how he feels about them. And that's a big complaint that you hear. You hear massive complaints about guys not knowing how to be affectionate. And I'm going to go into some things, and it's not to disparage people, it's not to point fingers and vilify anybody. But we have to take better accountability for what we do in order to break cycles. We have to understand that we are the original sources of how things start. One of the big things that I tend to get into when it comes to the male-female dichotomy is when you hear about black boys of this generation being very effeminate in their methods, in their personalities, in their ways of handling things. I'm of two minds with that. You can't have certain things both ways. And what I mean by that is, you cannot take all of the credit for raising boys and girls on your own and then absolve yourself of any responsibility for the things that don't really, you know, mesh correctly when they get older. You can't say, hey, my kid graduated high school, that was all me, I did that, and pat yourself on the back until you hurt your elbow, and then on the flip side, not take any responsibility, or, you know, of if your child grows up. Well, let's just focus on the boys right now. If your boy grows up and he's extra defensive and he's very, I don't want to say emotional, but just very ultra, like, melodramatic when it comes to their behaviors when it applies to certain things. And then you accuse men of being feminine acting. Well, if you're going to take the credit as a single person who raised that child, then where is the source of how that behavior is learned? Now again, I'm not getting at the person. The circumstances dictated certain situations. If you were abandoned, if you were left by the father, and we'll get into that too. If you were left by the father of your child, and you had to do it all on your own, you can only raise them as according to what you are, and you're female. If you're a female, that's all you know, because that's what you are. So again, it's not to shame. It's just to point out an analytical fact. Would be no different if the shoe was on the other foot, and a girl, if a man raised a girl and she had absolutely no concept of what it is to be a lady. A man can't raise a lady because he's not a lady. Now you see it. You see the residual effect of the last couple of generations of this breaking up of the black household and stuff like that. So you see it reflected. You see it reflected in boys being more effeminate, and you see it reflected in girls being more masculine. You see it reflected in the fact that you see so much more bisexuality going on, and again, I'm not trying to jump into that subculture. I'm not trying to jump into that topic, because I'm not getting into the whole what's natural and what's not, blah blah blah, because that ain't something that even interests me. I'm just pointing out that you didn't notice that back a couple of generations ago, being so open and prevalent. Now, why do men tend to absolve themselves of their responsibility as parents? This is where we have to start going back in time. This is where we have to start going back to slavery, and I hate to say this. This is how the past affects the present, because we are still living out a slave mentality that was beat into us, that was programmed into our psyches. When you have a man who has never been his own man because he was always somebody's slave, imagine the psychological effect of a woman and a child seeing a man be emasculated in front of them constantly, repeatedly. The child does not have respect for the man, because the man has always been seen as being weak, because he was always somebody else's boy, somebody else's slave. The child sees the man not as a father, protector, provider, because he couldn't even protect his own mother, who was victimized, sodomized, raped, beat, what have you, by a slave master. That behavior gets passed down generation after generation after generation, hundreds of years of this type of behavior. And then when we are set about to go about our own business, be on our own, what we have been programmed to do is to have a behavior of, how can I say it? We have a hyper-violent behavior towards each other, because that's all we've known. Our method of fixing something has been to beat it in you, because that's what happened previously. So if all you know is, oh, you got a problem, I got your answer for that, and the answer is to get your ass whooped, what are you raising? Because that's the symbolism that goes on. The woman has less respect for the man already off the jump, because the man is born into a society in which he is already of subhuman status, second-class citizen status. He can't do much for her, so she looks at him like he is not of her standard on some level. Child grows up seeing dad struggling, not being able to provide for his family, mom and dad always struggling, nobody's getting ahead in life. It's all about, life is strictly about survival. And when the child starts to show their discontent, what's the remedy? To get their ass whooped. So now you are instilling a violent behavior, learned behavior in the child. And you're also instilling a certain discontent towards parenting and being a parent themselves. So when they become a parent, it's never been in the mold of a beautifully merged family of love. It's always been about sex. You have a kid, that's just a byproduct of having sex. And you do what you gotta do. I do what I gotta do. You raise your kid selfishly because you're not devoting yourself to this child's guidance. You are basically just living your life, and you just happen to have a kid. So they're just along for the ride. Again, boys are not being raised to show affection toward their women because they don't know what it is to have affection from the man and the woman in their life. Women who raise boys, a lot of times, we're not talking blanket statements, but a lot of times, women who raise boys tend to think that the method of disciplining a boy is to discipline them as if they were a man themselves. The mother I'm referring to. So you see a woman be ultra aggressive towards a boy, like OD aggressive, beating a kid, beating a boy in public, publicly shaming them, barking on them, cursing at them. We've all seen it. Let's not act like we haven't. You look at that woman and you're like, damn, the kid just said he wanted a Snicker bar. Like, what's wrong? What's the problem? So that child grows up hyper violent, and his view of women is that of a female who is just basically a nag, and who is just looking at him like, what can you do for me? You're useless. Any little thing that you do wrong, you're going to get barked on for it. These are psychological problems. And you may disagree with that, and that's fine. But give me a counter argument to counter what it is that we all see out here. Give me that. And if your logic can override mine, I will not practice dissonance toward it. But don't practice dissonance towards what I'm saying right now if you can't refute it. Just keep an open mind. Again, we merely play out learned behaviors, practice and learned behaviors, ideologies, things of that nature. Those are all things that are woven into your DNA during your impressionable years, which is from basically 2 to 10. So the things that are instilled in you during those years tend to play themselves out. Of course, what we're trying to do is break a lot of this stuff, these behaviors. So again, you want to look at our behavioral issues, we have to look at the source. We have to look at the fact that this is not just what you choose to do. It's basically you act upon a behavior that is instilled within you, even though you know better. That just goes to show you the strength and the power of the psychosis. When you know better and you still don't do better, that shows you just how strong the programming is on you. Now, again, what do we need to do? We need to understand the strength, the power of our influence on our children in every little thing that we do. When you sit there and you curse in front of your kid because you're watching the game and you mad at something that just happened, you're showing your child something. It's something as minuscule as that. When you are a father and you're not with the mother of your child anymore, that's already showing something right there. But you show the mother of your child absolutely no respect, and your child constantly sees you with other women, that's showing your child something. They're going to grow up looking for that, boy or girl. And on the flip side, as a woman, you're not with the father of your child anymore, but you don't allow him to be a father. You withhold his God-given right as a co-parent. He has to skate uphill just to see his kid. And therefore the mountain of obstacle becomes too great, and eventually they stop trying. Now the dad isn't seen for the story that the dad knows is happened. The child only sees a father that is not in their life. Maybe later on in life they learn what happened, but for right now, it is what it is. So again, we have to recognize what we do and take accountability for what we do in each individual household. This is not something that we can just have a march for and just have this big speech in front of everybody and say this is what we all need to do. No, you need to do this in your own house. If everybody did the same, practiced the same basic philosophy in their own homes, the byproduct would be that anyway. So we don't have to have big meetings and speeches and rallies, and we don't have to do all that. We just need to check ourselves on an individual level and let that spread out, inside out. Very basic concept. We need to allow our men to have feelings. Men are not allowed to have feelings. Men have been numb, beaten into numbness about having feelings and emotions. When you see a man being emotional about something, and I'm not talking like catty and melodramatic, I'm just talking about showing passion for something. When you see a man being affectionate, when you see a man showing a particular kind of vulnerability, do not judge them on that. Do not mess with their psyches, because that has always been the way. And look how it's resulted. Look at the results of all of those generations of messing with a man's psyche about being affectionate and showing intimacy. Look at where we are now. And we all share responsibility, all of us. Just think about it. It's just perspective. And like I said, if we correct that one learned behavior, I see pretty much everything turning flip side up based off of just that. Because if you allow the man to regain his throne, if you allow him to regain his masculinity, his dignity, his strength, his symbol of what he's supposed to be, he will lead you. But you have to allow that to happen. You cannot hamstring him and continue to emasculate him. And that starts from when he's Simba. Can't grow into Mufasa if you psychologically destroy Simba. He will never become that. You want a king and you're raising a prince, teach him how to be a king. Don't teach him how to be don't teach him how to be Scar. Teach him how to be Mufasa. When we grow up, like I said, we're just reflecting things that were instilled in us. So when you blame us, who do you really point the blame to? Just think about it. And stop thinking about life as survival. It's time to stop surviving, and it's time to start thriving. If we don't think with a thriving mentality, we will never rise above a certain level. We will always be survivors. We don't need to be survivors anymore. We need to thrive and take our own, establish ours, and build ours for us. And that's not a separatist mentality. That is an infrastructure mentality. In order to be viable, you must have an infrastructure. Why are we not viable as a people, as a culture, in this society? Because we don't have an infrastructure. So it's like I said, allow us to be what we're supposed to be. And you will reap the benefits and the rewards. All of us will. And if you don't believe it, there's only one way to find out, right? Prove me wrong. Either way, there's only one way to find out, and that's if you try it. That's my theory, and my name is Brian. I represent Brian Speaks On, and I thank you all for paying attention to this. Tell me what you think. Get at me on YouTube or Facebook about it. and let's talk about it. Let's speak on it. I'll be briefing you soon about the projects that I'm getting into. But for now, bless up, enjoy your day, enjoy your life. Let's all live together, live harmonically, and be blessed. One.